Hey Hrishi, it's wonderful to have you on my channel, and it's nice to see you here. So, why don't you first introduce yourself?
Well, I'm Rishikesh Sathawane. I live in the Silicon Valley. I work here. Originally from a city called Yavatmal in Maharashtra.
Hmm.
Came to the US for my master's in '97 and been here since.
Hmm. So, one of the main things that um, inspired me to talk to you was the first interview that you did with NDTV, I guess. You're probably the first male who actually did whatever ceremony, marriage ceremony publicly in India, I guess. I mean, people might have done it, but haven't actually done it so openly. So, but in your case, that was the thing that. Um, so, what actually gave you courage to do that in India? Because India is pretty homophobic still. So, back then, what actually made you do that?
Well, I mean, it was always my dream that was driving it. I always wanted to have a wedding ceremony just like other people were having in my hometown, surrounded by all my friends, family friends, and others. And that was a driving force. But then, as I was growing up, I realized I'm gay. And, at some point, I almost felt like I'll never be able to get to that dream of marrying in my hometown. But that thought was always there in the back of my mind. And uh, I came out to my parents really long time ago. As soon as I came to the US, I knew I was financially independent. I came out to them. And then after they were comfortable with it, I started coming out to my cousins, my other folks. Every time I visited India, I kind of uh, I was fairly open on Facebook too, so that kind of helped people know. And then people who did not want to keep in touch with me, they did not. People who wanted to keep in touch with me, they did. Even when I went back, they talked to me like a normal friend, and that kind of gave me a clue that everything is fine.
Hmm.
But that was just a clue, and then you could bring it up, and they would be okay with it still. So Uh, um, gradually I realized there are more and more people who are just okay with all that.
Hmm.
And then came the final thing. I got engaged to my partner here in the US. I proposed to him, and then I posted those pictures. And, there were a lot of people from my hometown on my Facebook who liked it, who commented and wished congratulations and all that kind of stuff. So immediately I knew I can have a wedding ceremony in my hometown and invite these people who are okay with it. you
That's
know,
cool.
the word will go around and all that kind of stuff, but at least if you have a critical mass of people who are comfortable and who are okay with that, I think that's all we need.
Yeah, that's.
So, yeah, then it was just a matter of convincing my parents that,
Mhm.
see, so many people liked my, engagement stuff from our hometown. And so it should be fine. And eventually they came around, and that's how it happened. I mean, the other logistics are simpler things.
Yeah, that's correct. The main thing is usually, yeah, the setup.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess I was preparing for it for a long time. You have to have people who are comfortable around you.
Yeah.
Um,
Um, and so why with that, why don't we just dive into how your life story in general, like basically when did you realize you're gay, and when did that start to happen?
Well, I guess I knew at some level I'm not attracted to girls, pretty long time ago. But the concept of liking somebody of same sex was still kind of I didn't really know about it. It was alien. It was, I mean, I felt it, but didn't really know what to do with it, right?
Hmm.
Until I came to study at IIT Bombay, where in psychology there was a passing mention of homosexuality, but then they justified it as like, in the military there are no girls around, so the guys kind of. So it was like, real weird concept, and I was like, no, I don't really feel that way,
Yeah.
you know. Um, but then eventually I came to the US, and there was an LGBT organization in the university I went to study, and I went for the meetup there. Like, there was just a regular monthly meeting they had, and then uh, people talked about their life, and a lot of people talked about their coming out stories, and just general stuff like, I'm dating this guy right now, or whatever. They wanted to update on their life. And it just felt so normal. I was like, wow, this is exactly how I feel. And lo and behold, initially I was still not kind of ready to accept myself as a gay. So I kind of said, okay, I'm bisexual perhaps. But then that changed in 2 months. After 2 months, I was like, no, I'm gay.
That's great. So, did you ever have these feelings when you were around? Obviously, you must have had it when you were like at like in your puberty or something back in India.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So,
It's you realize it when you are watching a movie and suddenly you feel something about the hero. You feel a little more emotional and
mm.
sympathetic towards the hero instead of the other way around. And you have your friends talking about, oh, sympathizing about the heroine instead.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense.
And of course, a lot of my classmates, in the puberty days, they're all hyper hormone, right? So they talk about girls and their organs, and uh,
Hmm.
and I was like, okay.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it didn't make sense. But I was able to focus on studies because of that, I guess.
So, did you ever? When did you move to the US? At what age?
Born in 73, 97, I moved, so about 23 years.
Oh, so until then, did you ever meet any queer person in India? Like until 23 in India?
I did no, I did not.
Wow.
I mean, in my hostel, there was always, this stuff going on. I knew there was something happening between the guys.
Oh.
But then that was also the part of my hostel where they were doing drugs and
Hmm.
a lot of booze. And I was like, what the hell? I don't want to be, I don't want to be going in that direction because, it was just considered like, oh, those are the give up people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You don't want to give up on your life like that. So I stayed away from all that.
Hmm. Okay, you thought so. You categorize drugs and all of that, and put homosexuality in the same category as in drugs.
No, it was not like that.
Hmm.
Of course, I felt strongly attracted sexually to guys, but I said the guys who were involved, whom I had heard about doing, some things with each other, were also involved with drugs
Oh.
and the booze and things like that, and their grades were not well. So I was hesitant to even approach them because of all these other things. So other things, obviously, I considered bad, but
Hmm.
so there was a battle. If I had found some gay person who was doing well in studies, I'm sure that would be a different story.
Yeah.
So no, I didn't really consider it as bad. Of
Hmm.
course, I had internal feelings.
Hmm.
Um, in fact, I kind of talked to the psychologist in IIT Bombay, that I feel attracted to guys. What is this? I didn't really understand. I mean, see, this is a long time back when the internet was not really there. I mean, internet was there, but most of it was text based. Forget about apps and smartphones, right? So it was really hard to even know, and I did not want to check out more detailed books from the library because I was afraid it will get recorded, and I don't know what.
Uh-huh.
Um, So, I mean, I didn't really meet anybody who was openly gay
Uh-huh.
in India back
Hmm.
then. Although I did hear about voodoos in Mumbai,
Hmm.
but I didn't really have courage to go there, and I didn't really know where exactly the bar was and
Oh.
when people go there and that kind of stuff.
Oh, I actually, this is my first time hearing that name, Voodoo. So I was like, what is that? So it's a bar, okay.
Yeah, Voodoos is a bar in, I don't know if it is still there, but it used to be there, and maybe not on all days. Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about you. You touched upon coming out a bit and moving to the US, and so when did you actually start accepting who you are? At what age did that start to happen? That now I'm not gonna shy away from being myself, and I'm gonna start being myself.
Yeah, I mean, it pretty much happened immediately after I attended that meeting.
Uh huh.
Um, I attended that meeting, I felt the same, and I was like, okay, this is me. And then I remember I told my roommates, who were other three Indians, within a couple of weeks or so of that meeting, or maybe the same week, I don't remember. And they freaked out.
Yeah, that makes sense.
As in most of the new students there, you always share rooms. So,
Yeah.
two guys share a room to save money on rent and all that kind of stuff. So the guy who was sharing room with me, he refused to enter the room. He started sleeping in the living room, and then I had to tell him, "Hey, listen, I'm not going to attack you or anything. So I know you should, you should be, you should not be afraid of me or anything."
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah.
So, but then the situation became really uncomfortable, and then I found another place to move in
Mm-hmm.
with other gay people. Immediately I knew some other gay people after that meeting, right? And then I moved in with a couple gay guys.
Okay. So, um, the two important things that really struck me while whenever I talk to people, whenever I do these interviews, is um, I always talk about mental health and sort of a like mental health, loneliness, depression, these kinds of stuff that are always like pushed back. Like you shouldn't be talking to them. Like they're like taboo. Like but
Hmm.
I always try to want to bring that stuff out and um, talk to people. And so, what's your experience? Um, if you ever had any mental health issues, or have you ever gone through it?
I think if you are closeted, then I can see a lot of people feeling that because you have dual life. One life is one way, and the other life is not that way. And you start feeling like your gay life is some uh, isolated part of your life that nobody knows. And I guess that's where all those feelings start. And for me, since I always was more out and open, I didn't feel it to that extent, but I have experienced it. And the reason I have experienced it is I didn't come out like, to everyone at the same time. So it took me time. So I could feel the difference when I'm hanging out with people I'm out to and hanging out with people I'm not out to. So I was working in Boise for a while, and Idaho, where the Boise is located. It's a fairly conservative state here.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was not really out at work. So my personal life was great, and then at work, it was always kind of a little bit hiding
Mm-hmm.
stuff. But then I came out to one guy from my office, and then the dynamics with the way I interacted with him changed, and that just told me that I have to come out, because otherwise this is just going to split my mind into two, and that's not good. But then my company sent me to California for a project, and California is all liberal and everything.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is where I'm going to be. I'm not going back to Idaho. um,
Yeah. California is awesome.
so as soon as as soon as I finished my project in California and went back, I told my boss there, I'm going, make me move there. Otherwise, I'll find some other company and move there. He said, okay, fine. Finish this project. You have a couple more months to go, and then we'll move you there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happened. Um, I mean, even after coming to California, I was not out within my company immediately. But when you're moving in the right direction, you have your comfortable part of life, and
Mm-hmm.
you have this other part of your life. So, I mean, I never really got that isolated. So,
Mm-hmm.
uh, never really felt kind of that way. But I remember when I initially went to that meeting in Iowa, um, and then I was struggling with my roommates.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Somewhere around that time, I had a fleeting thought of like, oh, this is too complicated. What am I gonna? I'm not a good son or something, and uh, um, so I mean, I did contemplate like suicide or
Oh.
something, but it was never really that serious. The thought came, and I talked to somebody, and it just went away. So, uh,
That's good. Yeah.
I mean, I have gotten a little bit there, but I think luckily I was able to come out and get myself out of it before it became a big issue.
Mm-hmm. I'm really glad to hear that. You actually didn't do anything really serious to yourself.
No, because when I was in IIT, I was struggling with it, right? I went to the psychiatrist at IIT about it, talked about it, and what happened there is a completely different story. But I did not want to go and talk to him again because he came out to me, and it just got weird.
Mhm.
So my grades did suffer a little bit, and that's where I felt a little bit isolated. But then IIT curriculum is so intense that and then I started applying to universities abroad. So all these other things sucked me up, and didn't really have time to think about all these other things in personal life.
Okay, that's
I mean, even if you're straight in IIT, you feel, you want have a girlfriend or something, but all these other things take over
yeah.
your attention. So
Um,
everybody was in the same boat.
yeah. So, what do you say to people right now? There might be people watching this now, and they might be going through like um, especially before coming out, or it might be anything. It's not just about them being gay, or they might be feeling hopeless, or there might be something happening in their lives that they might be feeling completely unsettled, completely overwhelmed, and so what do you say? What do you say to that when you have a person going through all of these feelings? What do you want to say to that person?
Um, to gay people and lesbian people, I would say figure out your financial independence first.
Mm-hmm.
Get there because you never know how parents will react and how they will twist your arm to do things that you don't want to do, and that can easily happen when you're financially dependent. So try to get to a financial independence as soon as you can. Meanwhile, you can test water. You can talk about gay news. You can talk about your gay friend and see how they react. If they are open, then gradually go bolder and bolder until you come out. But if things are not going in the right direction, make sure you are financially independent first, and then you can do whatever you want. I mean, once you are by yourself, it's much easier
Hmm.
to be open. And I think being open helps quite a bit.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, that's my experience. And for people who are not gay, they have to identify where, I guess, where the feelings are coming from,
Hmm.
in the sense, why are they feeling isolated or I mean, I can't really speak for others. Sorry. I mean,
Yeah,
at least the gay stuff I have some experience, and for others, I don't really know what to say.
that's actually a good answer too. A lot of wise people say that I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I can only contemplate, but it's like, my opinion. It
Yeah, you
doesn't
never know. Yeah, yeah,
matter.
that's exactly. Um, the one more aspect that I want to really go through is we had a exchange of texts regarding relationships, and the sentence "what you really want" is that has really struck me. Like it was like, wow, this has to be the priority. Wow, why can't I think of relationships as the way you described it to be, rather than the sugarcoating it, and how cinemas display it, or whatever, how people display it on Instagram, or like whatever. But you really got down to the core of it. And I just want you to share that again for the viewers, if you can, about what do you really mean when you say what you really want in a relationship.
I mean, like any other relationship between, you and your parents, you, your siblings, you, your friends, there is always a compromise, right? Nobody is exactly the same personality. And so if you want to share your life with somebody, there will be things that are common, there will be things that are different.
Hmm.
And especially for the things that are different, some people like some of those different things, but there are some different things that you will not tolerate. It will always bother you somewhere. So I think when you are dating, the important thing is to figure out what things really bother you and you cannot live with. I mean, for somebody, it could be the fact that the other person is eating meat and you're a vegetarian, so you cannot really put up with that. When you're going on a date in a restaurant, that person is eating meat and you're eating vegetarian, all is well. But when it comes to when you start living together, there's meat in the fridge, there's the same cutting board, and all kinds of complications. So you have to be honest to yourself, like, what are the compromises I really cannot tolerate? When people go out on a date, it's easy to just look at the physical attraction. I like a guy who is tall. Some people like short guys, some people like slim guys, some people want muscular guys. Those are easy things because you feel it right away. But then you have to look way beyond that. um, there is physical attraction, but there is also, are you okay if the other person is not making money? Or do you want him to be a professional? Do you want him to be the same profession as you, or a different profession is okay? What does that mean? So you have to, and then religion brings a lot of complications, right? You may be okay with somebody of other religion, but then do you want to, um, do you imagine what kind of ideal life do you imagine, right? You see your parents and his parents. Um, all celebrating together, maybe living together for some part of your time. Now, if the other person is a different religion, are your parents going to be okay with that? Uh, because if they're living with you, then that's another dimension you have to consider. Either you convince your parents, or you find somebody who is compatible with everybody in the home. I mean, religion is easy, an easy example
Mhm.
that um, that I can give and people can think about. But there could be other things.
So I feel like
So I mean, you have to look at all those.
when you say those things, I feel like it's not about trying to find out. It's all about um, really having a clarity of what you don't want. It's not about like
Yeah, so that's why I said, you have to make a list of like uncompromisable
yeah.
qualities. These are the qualities of the other person I cannot compromise on. I want him to be, example, I don't know, to go to an extreme food preference like Jain food, or whatever it is. In my house, I'm vegetarian, but my husband, he eats meat, and we are a very vegetarian family. But he eats meat. There is his meat in the fridge. He cooks meat, and it gave a little conflict before, but I knew it was not really something that would be like a no-go. So
Mhm.
I was okay with it. So that is not a something, uncompromisable thing. So I was able to compromise on it. So that's why it was in my compromisable thing.
Mhm.
Yes, I would like somebody who is vegetarian, but it was not a deal breaker. Um, but another thing that was, I mean, to give you my example, my deal breaker would be if somebody says, no, I cannot live with your parents, right? Now, Vin lived with his parents and he was okay with it. Now, in US, finding such person is a difficult
Almost
task.
impossible. Yeah.
Yes, that's the reason. Before I found Vin, I had an India trip just to find a husband because I knew most Indians are okay with having parents around. That's just normal in India, right? But there were other criteria that were kind of difficult to find
Mhm.
in India, like somebody who is out and open and willing to marry in India.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a
That
big
was
difference.
something I did not want to compromise on. So, I mean, for everybody, it's a different list, depending on your personality. You have to make a list of what things you cannot compromise on. And then after that is a list of things that are highly desirable, but maybe you will compromise on it. And then the third is good to have. If that characteristic come, then it's icing on the cake. If not, no big deal. And then the rest is doesn't matter. Right?
Yeah. This is
So what happens is, uh, I think dating is a very painful process. In the sense, you go through somebody, you start doing things, and then if after 2 months, if you find he has some of the uncompromisable stuff, then you basically wasted your 2 months. If you have not wasted those 2 months, maybe you'll get into a relationship and stay with him for like 5 years, and then eventually discover that, okay, we cannot really get along because of this thing. So I mean, what's the point, right? You knew that before. You should have, I mean, it's your choice, right? It's your thing. You should know what you compromise with or not. So why do you want to go through that cycle? Because it's not just the time; it's also the emotional toll it will take on you and the other person. So it's better to know. Um, if the person meets all the uncompromisable criteria, then go ahead and date with that person and figure out what else you want to figure out.
yeah.
I think that's. I mean, I'm talking from experience. I had two relationships before this, and which ended up, and after that, I really did soul searching. Like why did it happen? After the second breakup, I was in my 40s, and I was like, I cannot keep on having this relationships. I want to have a child in my life, and if I don't get this right next time, I'll probably never have a child.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to shape up.
Mm-hmm.
I had no choice.
Oh,
But for a lot of other people, you guys still have time. So
mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah.
do spend some time thinking about it, because this is this time is very well worth spent. You should think about it seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is, if you cannot find that um, the initial set of criteria, then you're not even meeting that person, right? So you don't go through this successive dating and nothing happened, because that brings frustration in life, right?
Yeah.
Oh, my I had five dates that none of them lasted for more than 3 months. So So don't even go there. It's very easy over chat or email to figure out most of your basic uncompromising characteristics. So just go through that first.
Oh, yeah.
Have a good conversation.
So you feel like you knew those things were happening, but you still were in that relationship, right? Even though there were something.
My thoughts were not clear when I got relationship. I was, I moved to California, and I met somebody, and we kind of liked each other, and eventually it broke down because he did not want to have kids, and he was closeted, and he came out eventually, but. Anyway, problems related to that. I mean, I wish I had better clarity before.
Hmm.
The second relationship, some other characteristics came up. And I mean, I just dated like anybody else,
Yeah.
went out without even having a specific goal, what type of person. It was very wishy-washy, and I paid I paid for it, because after the second relationship broke down, I was really emotionally shattered,
Hmm.
and that's another thing I did not want to go through again.
Yeah.
I mean, there are always uncertainties in life, and I'm feeling very strong about the relationship that I am in. No, all I can say is future is uncertain, and who knows what will happen. But at least I have done my part
Oh, I
as much as I could.
I almost forgot. How did you actually meet your husband?
So it was on OkCupid. So
Uh-huh.
OkCupid is a dating website for both gay and straight people. The good thing about it is it has a lot of questions. I answered about 1,000 questions about myself. It's and it the questions is not only about yourself, but it also asks you question about what you want in the other person. So let's say, for example, I am vegetarian, but for the other person, I don't care, vegetarian or non-vegetarian. So
Mhm.
you answer as many questions as you like. I think they ask you to answer at least 15 of those. And not only that, you can mark them if it is important or not. So it kind of aligns with that list philosophy that I talked about. Not
Yeah.
quite, but at
Almost.
least, yeah, almost, in a crude way. But they have a lot of questions to answer, and then it matches with people, and it gives you a score, 70% match, whatever.
Oh.
So I was browsing people with match more than 80%. And then
Of course, I benchmark here.
and I found and so I found Win there, but after I read his profile, I could tell there are a lot of matches between what I wanted and what he wrote. But he didn't have a very elaborate profile. So I was like, fine. I started communicating with him, and the very second sentence he says, "Oh, this is so boring. We should just talk." I was
Wow.
like, fine. So I gave him my number, and we had a chat. And during that phone conversation, I was able to get all the answers,
Mm-hmm.
like my primary list, and well, there were some things in my primary list that you could not ask, um, over a phone.
Yeah.
Uh, Things like seeing if there is really an attraction, right? That you have to meet in person,
Yeah.
because photo will tell you one thing, and when you meet the person, that's another story.
Yeah.
So, except for those things, I felt very positive, and we met, and then within a few dates, I wanted to make sure that that list is cleared.
Mm-hmm.
The must-have uncompromising list is all the check marks there. So after that, we had more dates, and we moved pretty quickly. Um, we met in October, and then in December, he was going to Australia and for his cousin's wedding, and I didn't have anything to do, so I decided, okay, I'll go to Australia and have a road trip with him.
Mm-hmm.
So 7 days we spent together. A lot more check items happened, and
Yeah.
I mean, I was constantly seeing, uh, this very weird things like, oh, I mean, sometimes I even faked a few things, like, oh, I am feeling hurt here. See how he responds. Is he caring?
Okay.
You cannot just ask person if he's caring.
Yeah.
You have to see how he responds. So those things you can only do in person.
Mm-hmm.
So all those checklists happened, and he knows about this. We laugh about it. Yes, after all that, when we even after that, I didn't say I love you or anything. And after he got back from Australia, we had more dates. He started spending a few days at my home. I saw how he interacted with my parents.
Mm-hmm.
That was important. Um, and then after all that, eventually in April of next year, I proposed. So,
That's
I
cool.
mean, we moved pretty fast because, I mean, once you know what you want and all those things are there, once you have clarity, then it's easy to say, okay, yes, I don't really have any other excuse. I mean, there's no point just waiting and waiting to make a decision. He himself is very decisive. He knew what he wanted. He didn't have a list like me, but he had clarity. Whatever works for people, right?
Yeah.
I'm a very analytical engineering kind of approach. Uh,
Same as me.
so yeah, so we moved pretty fast. And after April, when I proposed him, my sister said, "Oh, this is not really an engagement." So she threw an engagement party that happened in June, and then immediately after that, we planned the India trip, and in December we got married in India.
December
So
of
just
20.
a little over
December of what?
2017,
Okay.
2017.
So it's been one
So
and a half year.
yeah, yeah. So October of 2016 is when we first met.
Oh,
Late
okay.
October.
Okay. Well, okay, Cupid. That's where it all began.
I mean, I really liked it. There are not as many people from India on it, but I really liked it.
All right.
Yeah, another thing is when I was in Australia, I attended his cousin's wedding, and there I saw he was completely open. His family was supportive, and that is what I wanted to see.
Mhm.
Also, is like I wanted somebody who's completely out and his family supporting, because in my mind I see married life as what most of our Indian people think. it's a union of two families, and if his family is not on board, then it's gonna be weird. It's not gonna be a fulfilling
Yeah.
relationship. So that was one of the checkpoints that kind of prompted me to go to Australia, because I knew at wedding all his cousins and
Hmm.
relatives will be there. I wanted to see how
Well, you
how he
got really
is really
wise.
out.
You got really wise with this. There was a real
Yeah.
strategy, and you knew. Yeah, that was really good. Um, and one of the last things that I want to talk about um is just the career aspect of you. Like, what is how has it been um like a building block towards who you are as a person right today?
I mean, in terms of career, I pretty much followed the IIT crowd. In IIT, once you go third, fourth year, everybody starts looking at applying abroad for universities to get a scholarship. That's what I did. I got a scholarship to do my master's here. And then after the master's, everybody applies for a job,
Yeah.
through the campus placement. That's what I did. I was in Idaho for a year and I hated that place. So a lot of IITians, they end up in Silicon Valley, and I mean most engineers anyway, not just IITians. I mean they end up in Silicon Valley. So I ended up in Silicon Valley, and at the beginning of your career, you worry about your green card and citizenship. That's what I did. So you stick around to the same company as much as possible. You put up with all the shit that your boss makes you go through. That's what I did. I mean, I had a wonderful time also at Micron, my first job. In a sense, I was able to do a lot of different things and still grow in my career within the constraints. But at the same time, uh, being gay and being out and dealing with the family, it kind of takes up your energy,
Hmm.
and so you're not able to move as fast as some of the straight guys would.
Hmm.
A lot of my straight um, classmates, they pretty much after they start a job, they get married, they produce kids, and their life is on a track. Their wife takes care of home, and the guys focus on career. But for me, there were more battles.
Hmm.
A lot of people see me as as a single and no kids and not to worry, but no, that's not really true.
Hmm.
As a gay person, it takes a lot of your energy to deal with all the other aspects. And then I got involved with nonprofits like Tricon and Blue Flag, so that take a lot of my energy too.
Hmm.
But eventually, I was like, okay, I need to move ahead with my career. So in 2008, I decided to get an MBA.
Hmm.
And then after that, my life changed, moved from engineering to marketing. Initially, I had some hiccups, but then got back on track.
Hmm.
Um, you know, I see some of my other straight classmates who are, kind of ahead in the game. So I feel that uh, I could have been a little bit ahead in my career if not for this.
Hmm.
But that's fine. Yeah, being gay is wonderful,
Yeah.
and um, you know, everybody has uh, different things they have to deal with in their life, and cannot really complain.
Yeah. Well, it was awesome talking to you. It was great session. We talked a bunch about relationships. I mean, we talked about everything. So it was like, um, I'm glad we had this discussion. Um, so any parting words before we go?
Very words. I would say be more decisive when it comes to these things. Have clarity and be decisive. Otherwise, you'll waste a lot of your precious time.
Mhm. Thanks a lot, Hrishi.
Um,
You were
okay.
saying something?
No, that's
Okay.
fine.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for your time. Thanks a lot for the wisdom that you shared with us. I'm sure this has been this will be a treasure to a lot of people who will watch this video. So thanks a lot for doing this.
Well, I hope it helps other people.
Yeah.
It's always good if I can help other people.
Yep. Thank you, Hrishi.
Okay, have a good one.
Bye.